The last time I was in Manila, I'd gone to Shake Shack in BGC and was about to start my walk back to Makati, capturing walking footage for the Story Channel. And as I had been countless times before, I was approached by a very attractive Filipina with property brochures. I had absolutely zero interest in buying anything, but this had happened to me so many times that I thought to myself, why not? Let's go and have a look, so I did. The condo itself was not necessarily a bad condo, but when I asked the price, I will admit to not being able to control my laughter. They wanted 11 million pesos, which is just under 200,000 US dollars, for a 33 square meter one-bedroom unit. This was on a low floor, and the prices rose the higher you went. I was shown 6 units in the same building, each one getting more expensive, each one empty and unoccupied, and I was left shaking my head, wondering how they could quote these prices and keep a straight face. I've covered the Thailand property market in depth over on the Thailand Deep Dive channel. I have lived it, I've studied it, and I've come to the conclusion that the Thai property market is hiding a huge lie. The Philippines property market is just as bad, or should I say even worse, and that is what I want to talk about today. Before I do, the written article for this piece is over on my website. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. Please go and check it out. It is the starting point for something big I am building to help Western foreigners in Southeast Asia, by a Westerner for Westerners. It's only just been made ready, but it should be great, and if you could go and have a click around, I'd appreciate it. It's only at 0.1% of what it will be, so bear that in mind. Now, how can a price of 200,000 US dollars be justified for a tiny condo in the Philippines? For a start, it cannot. But this is how people are falling for one of the biggest scams in the country. And once you actually understand the mechanics of it, you will never look at a Manila property brochure the same way again. Let me lay out what is actually happening in the Manila and the broader Philippines property market in 2026, because once you see the structure of the thing, the whole sales pitch falls apart in front of you. First, the pricing context. The condo I was shown in BGC was 11 million pesos for 33 square meters. That works out at around 333,000 pesos per square meter, or roughly 6,000 US dollars per square meter. At that rate, the agent was quoting. To put that number in proper context, compare it to what you would pay for the equivalent square meter in other regional cities. Bangkok central districts in 2026 are around 4,000 to 5,000 US dollars per square meter on the high end, and substantially less on the secondary market. Yet we all know that prices in Bangkok are also insane. Kuala Lumpur Central is around 3,000 to 4,000, Phnom Penh 2,000 to 2,500, and even Singapore, the genuinely international financial centre with the rule of law, the world-class infrastructure, the actual permanent residence pathway, charges somewhere around $18,000 per square metre in the central districts. So Manila in BGC on the pricing logic is asking more than a third of what Singapore costs, while delivering perhaps a tenth of what Singapore delivers. This is not a property market that has been priced rationally against the regional comparables. This is a property market that has been priced for a specific kind of foreign buyer who is going to be persuaded that BGC is the next Singapore, and who is not going to spend 10 minutes checking what the comparable square meter price looks like in actual developed Southeast Asian cities. The empty units are the second piece of the puzzle. The 6 units I was shown that afternoon were all empty. None of them had a sitting tenant. None of them had a previous owner who was selling. They were all developer inventory in a brand new tower that was, by the agent's own admission, only around 30% sold at that time. The whole tower was a speculative project. The whole sales pitch was based on me, the Western foreigner, walking back from Shake Shack, being persuaded to buy into a market that the local Filipino buyer cannot afford, and that the local rental market cannot support at the pricing being quoted. A 33 square meter BGC condo at 11 million pesos, if you wanted to rent it out, would need to bring in 70 to 80,000 pesos per month to give the owner anything approaching the kind of yield that justifies the purchase. The actual rental market in BGC for that size of unit is around 30,000, maybe 40,000 if you can find a tenant, which is not a guarantee. The numbers just don't work. The agent will not tell you that the numbers don't work. The agent will tell you that the price is going to rise, that BGC is on a trajectory, that you are getting in early. The agent has been telling people the same thing for at least a decade. The price has risen in some periods, the yield has not. Now I want to compare this to the Thailand property market, because the comparison is one of the things that I think long-term Western foreigners in Southeast Asia need to internalize. In Thailand, the property market has its own structural issues, the 1.64 million vacant housing units across the country that I have covered elsewhere, the foreign quota at 49% of condominiums, the land ownership prohibition for foreigners, the marital property structure under Sin Somros and Sin Suatua that means a house bought in a Thai spouse's name remains hers, the 200 billion baht in foreigner purchased property exposed to the visa system. All of that is real and all of it is bad, and I've made the case for years that buying Thai condos is one of the biggest financial mistakes a Western foreigner can make in Southeast Asia, a mistake I once made and a mistake I got out of. But Thailand has in its favour an actually functioning regional economy, a tourism industry that delivers genuine occupancy to some degree, and a domestic middle class that, while constrained by household debt at 104% of GDP, does occupy some of the property stock. The Thai market is significantly overpriced and structurally exposed, but it is at least anchored to a functioning real economy, even if in appearance only. The Philippines property market in 2026 has none of those anchors at the prices being asked in BGC or Makati or anywhere else for that matter. The Philippine economy is heavily dependent on overseas Filipino worker remittances at around $40 billion per year. The domestic middle class that could absorb the central Manila premium pricing is small and getting smaller in real terms. The tourism industry has not recovered to the levels needed to underwrite the rental yields on the premium districts. The Chinese investor base that briefly held up BGC and Pasay pricing has substantially withdrawn since the Pogo crackdowns and the Bam Bam compound raids. What you have left is a developer sector that has built tens of thousands of units priced for a buyer who does not exist in the Philippines, who is being sold to Western retirees and to a thinning Chinese investor segment, and who, when those flows dry up, leaves behind an inventory overhang that the local economy cannot absorb. So the prices are not justified by yield, they are not justified by occupancy, and they are not justified by the regional comparables. They are not justified by the domestic affordability. They are not justified by anything except the developer's need to clear inventory and the agent's need to make a commission off the Western foreigner she has caught on the walk back from BGC. I want to make a particular point about the sales tactics because this is the part that I think the new arrival to Manila does not see clearly. The Filipina property agent who approaches you in BGC on Ayala Avenue in Makati in Greenbelt, anywhere near the Western foreigner is walking through the central districts, is not an accident. She is a professional sales operative working on commission for the developer sector. Her job is to convert the Western foreigner who has wandered into her zone into a buyer. The friendliness is real, the smile is real, the willingness to spend 2 hours walking you through 6 units in a tower you were not going to visit is real. The whole interaction is structured to convert your day off into a property tour, into a sales pitch, into a deposit. The agent is good at her job. The Western foreigner who does not know the structure of the interaction is the unwitting customer. When I went on that tour, I knew exactly what was happening. I was curious about the numbers and I was not going to buy. The agent did not know that. She treated me as a serious lead. She showed me the 11 million peso unit, then the 13 million one, then the 15 million one, working up the tower as the prices climbed, with the implicit framing that the higher units were more desirable and that the early commitment was the smart move. The whole script was professional. It was designed to convert, and even if it only converts a tiny proportion of the Western foreigner who agreed to go on the tour into a buyer, that's still paying them huge commissions. This is one of the biggest scams operating in the Philippines, I believe. It is the property market in name only, and the scam is not illegal. The agent is not breaking the law, the developer is not breaking the law. The prices being quoted are the prices the developer is asking. The transaction, if you agree to it, is a real transaction in real Philippine pesos for a real condominium with a real title. The scam is in the framing. The scam is in the implied value and the implied yield. The scam is in the suggested resale value. The scam is in the comparison to Singapore that the brochure subtly invites. The scam is in the absence of any honest discussion about what the local domestic affordability picture actually looks like or what the rental yield actually delivers. The Western foreigner who buys an 11 million peso BGC condo in 2026 is, in functional terms, paying Western prices for a Philippines product, in a market with no rule of law equivalent to the West. No demographic engine equivalent to the West, no foreigner investor protection equivalent to the West, and no exit liquidity equivalent to the West. he is buying into a market that has been priced for a fantasy version of the Philippines, not the actual one. I want to talk briefly about who is actually buying these units, because the answer tells you a lot about the structure of the market. A meaningful proportion of the BGC and Makati premium inventory is being bought by Filipino-American returnees, by overseas Filipino workers using their remittances as a down payment, and by a smaller foreign buyer segment that includes the Western retirees being targeted by the walk-through sales operation. The Filipino-American buyers are bringing dollars and are subject to the same kind of confusion about the rationality of the pricing that the Western retiree is. The OFW buyers are leveraging their overseas earnings into Philippine property as the standard cultural store of supposed value, even when the financial logic just doesn't work. The foreign buyer segment is a segment most exposed to the scam framing. A small Chinese investor segment also exists, though it has thinned since the POGO crackdowns. The Chinese investors were somewhat holding up the high end of the market through the late 2010s and early 2020s. The withdrawal of that segment has left the developers exposed and has produced the soft pricing that I expect to see in the next few years. The Manila property market in 2026 is, in functional terms, looking for the next foreign buyer source to replace the Chinese inflow. The Western retiree is one of the segments the developers and the agents are now actively cultivating to fill that gap. This is, in other words, a market that needs the Western foreigner to be persuaded to buy in order to clear the inventory that has been built. The sales pitch is engineered. The agent is engineered. The brochure is engineered. The whole walk-through experience is engineered. And the Western foreigner, who is not paying any attention to the structure of the engineering, is the customer the structure has been designed to convert. So what is the practical takeaway? The practical takeaway is the same one I made about the Thai market. Do not buy property in the Philippines as a Western foreigner. Rent, long leases, give you the housing you need at a fraction of the cost of owning. Rental yields on BGC and Makati premium inventory are so low that the rent versus buy maths overwhelmingly favours the renter. The 11 million peso unit I was shown could be rented for around 30,000 pesos per month if at all, which is roughly 360,000 pesos per year if it was rented out with no gaps. The opportunity cost of the 11 million pesos, even in a low-yield bank deposit at 4%, is around 440,000 pesos per year. The yield differential, the capital risk, the foreign buyer exposure, and the absence of any reliable exit liquidity make the decision to buy not wrong, but downright absurd. The Western foreigner who is being sold the BGC condo in 2026 is being sold a financial product that has been engineered to look like a lifestyle decision. The lifestyle decision is the rent. The financial product is the purchase. The two should not be confused. The fact that they are routinely confused is what keeps the developers in business and what keeps the Filipino agents on Ayala Avenue with brochures in their hands. I do not regret going to look at that property tour. It gave me the on-the-ground evidence that I needed to make this argument as correctly and concretely as I am making it now. I do regret on behalf of the men I've met in Manila who have already brought into these units and who are now sitting on inventory they cannot sell, that nobody made this argument clearly enough to them before they signed the deposit. The Philippines property market in 2026 is a bigger scam than the Thailand property market is, because the Thailand market at least has somewhat of a functioning regional economy behind it. The Philippines market has been priced for a fantasy buyer who does not exist in the volumes the developers need, and the segment being aggressively cultivated to fill the gap is the segment that should be running, not buying. If you are in Manila and see a Filipina with a brochure and she approaches you outside Shake Shack in BGC, go and have lunch instead. Take the brochure if you must, look at the numbers when you get home, run the rent versus buy maths honestly, and then put the brochure in the bin where it belongs. That is a version of the Philippines property argument that needs to be made. The next time I'm back in Manila, I expect the same Filipina to be standing in the same place with the same brochure for a new tower just across the street. The script will be the same, the numbers will be the same, the trap will be the same, and the Western foreigner who has watched this video will, I hope, know what he's looking at before he agrees to buying such crap. Thanks for tuning in to today's Philippines Deep Dive, guys. I do appreciate it. Hope to catch you in the next one. Cheers. Don't forget to check out the website. And yeah, bye for now. Thanks, guys.